We are ready.
Okay, it is 7 o'clock and I would like to call this meeting of the Lunenburg School Committee to order. Dr. Burnham, would you take over your preamble here?
Happily. Good evening, everyone. As a preliminary matter, this is Dr. Burnham, Superintendent of Schools. I will do a roll call to confirm that all members and persons anticipated on the agenda are present and can hear me. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Chair, Mrs. Carol Archambault.
Yes.
Vice Chair, Mr. Brian Leighton.
Yes.
Secretary, Mrs. Laura Kelly.
Yes.
Ms. Sophie Shapiro.
Yes.
And Mr. Anthony Sculombrini.
Yes.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Recording Secretary, Ms. Susan Summers.
Yes.
Business Manager, Mr. Michael Cassidy.
Yes.
Our Health and Safety Officer, Katie McGuire. I don't see her on the meeting yet, but
Oh,
she should be joining us later.
No, I'm here.
Oh, there you are. Sorry. Didn't see you, Katie. Director of Facilities, Mr. John Murphy.
I'm here.
Our School Resource Officer, Brad McNamara.
I'm here.
High School Assistant Principal, Mr. Brian Duffy.
I'm here.
And Mr. Adams is also here with us this evening. Can you hear us, Mr. Adams?
Yes.
And other administrators include Ms. Juliana Hanscom, Special Ed Director. Juliana, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay. There may be other administrators that join the meeting later, but everybody that we anticipate speaking this evening is present. So I'll turn it back to you,
Great.
Mrs. Archambault.
All righty. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and will be broadcast over the Lunenburg Public Access Channel and streaming on Facebook Live at a later time. And this meeting of the Lunenburg School Committee is being conducted remotely. In accordance with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, public meetings may be conducted remotely. The order, which you can find posted on the town website on the COVID-19 Information Center page, accessed through the town manager's webpage, allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. For this meeting, the Lunenburg School Committee is convening by telephone conference, video conference via Zoom app, Facebook Live, etc., as posted on the town's website identifying how the public may join. For Zoom meetings, please note that this meeting is being recorded and that all attendees are participating by video conference. Accordingly, please be aware that other folks may be able to see you and that you take care not to screen share your computer. Anything that you broadcast may be captured by the recording. I, the chair, Carol Archambault, will introduce each speaker on the agenda. After they conclude their remarks, the chair will allow members to provide any comment, question, or motion. Please hold until your name is called. Please remember to mute your computer or phone when you are not speaking. Speak clearly and in a way that helps generate accurate minutes. For any response, please wait till the chair yields the floor to you and state your name before speaking. If members wish to engage in colloquy with other members, please do so through the chair, taking care to identify yourself. Finally, any vote would be taken by roll call vote. We should have no votes this evening. We are discussion only. So with that, I'd like to start with the chair's report. It has come to my attention that there are some families that are concerned about the mask mandates. We are mandated to carry out the directions and policies of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. We understand that some of these policies are difficult and perhaps not what some families would prefer. When the mandates become choices, we will open this topic, mask wearing, up for discussion. But as of now, the commissioner has mandated masks through the month of February unless the school reaches 80% vaccination rate. We do not have that vaccination rate, so we are mandated to continue masking at this time. It has also been in the news that the governor and the commissioner are presenting school testing options. These options will be the subject of our meeting at 6 p.m. tomorrow evening. Once again, the state is expecting our administrators to analyze, make decisions, and pivot with no warning. This decision must be made quickly as materials may need to be ordered. Dr. Burnham will outline the situation during the health office update. If you have concerns about these options, please email me at carchambault, which is ARCHAMBAULT @Lunenburg Online prior to tomorrow evening's meeting, or make a comment at the second public comment section tonight or the first one tomorrow. Continuing on the COVID theme here, unless there are objections from the board, we will continue meeting by Zoom through our February 2nd meeting. Seeing none, we will make it so, as Captain Picard would say. Also, the Lunenburg Public Access Channel has taped the first part of the role and responsibilities of school committees video. We'll post it on our website and it will air on the local access channel as well as on their YouTube page. Many thanks to Joe McLaughlin at Lunenburg Public Access for making this happen. And we will talk about the second edition during our first meeting in February, but I have no air dates as of yet. So that concludes the chair's report. And I'd like to go on to public comment. I want to remind the public that the first public comment section is for agenda items only. The second public comment section is open to any topic within the scope of authority of the school committee. Public comments about individual students are prohibited to protect the privacy of the student per state and federal law. This is a 10-minute section, 3 minutes per person. Are there any public comments? Mrs. LeBlanc.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Good
Been a
evening.
little while since we've chatted. My name is Lisa LeBlanc, and I'm the president of the Lunenburg Education Association. I would like to speak specifically to the agenda item regarding the capital plan and school improvements, very specifically the item regarding air conditioning at the primary school. This seems like an odd time to be discussing heat, as we just braved several days in the single digits, but it is the right time to discuss this. At the beginning of the school year, I addressed the school committee during public comment about a general overview of educators and students getting back to classes. And at that meeting, I had mentioned the ongoing concerns we have over excessive heat during the beginning and end of our school year in some of our buildings. Both the primary school as well as Turkey Hill are not outfitted with air cooling systems to help the building stay cool during extreme heat and humidity. I'm sure there's others like myself who grew up in a house with no air conditioning or ceiling fans and attended a school without air conditioning. And many likely view this as an unnecessary perk rather than a necessary improvement, but I assure you, it is of the utmost importance to the safety and education of our students and staff. One of the things we've all learned over these past 22 months is the importance of time on learning. We're all happily back in school full time with all of our students providing them with instruction. All of our buildings have mechanisms for heat during the winter months, windows for fresh air in the fall and spring, but we're not outfitted with what we need for those 90-degree days and those weeks of high temperatures and high humidity that make it impossible to cool the classrooms down. Over the past few years, we've kept an eye on the mounting concerns over safety in our buildings during these days. Staff and students needing to access the nurse increased dramatically those days. Time on learning turns into time at cooling stations and laying low with the lights off and small fans on to attempt to rid the building of that sweltering heat. If you think I am exaggerating, anyone is welcome to join that second floor of Turkey Hill Elementary School on a 90-degree day. It is something else. So your educators know the impact of budgetary items like this. We also know the impact of missing instruction, as increasing heat leads directly to decreased learning and productivity. There may be more to study here than just regarding this budget item, but please help us work with you and work on a solution to support our youngest learners in these buildings. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mrs. LeBlanc. Is there anyone else with the public comment? I'm looking for hands and I don't see any. Okay, then we will continue on. We have no minutes or line item transfers this evening. And so we will go to the superintendent's report.
Good evening again, everyone. Typically during my superintendent's report, I provide you a COVID update. This update this evening will be provided by our health and safety officer. She'll discuss COVID cases, positivity, our test and stay program, and we'll also have an opportunity to discuss what we learned relative to the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education's new test option. And we'll discuss all of this a little bit later in the agenda. I do also want to share with you some of the staffing challenges that we've had. As you know, substitutes for the last 22 months have been really hard to come by. In recent weeks, though, college students home on winter break have been able to substitute, which has been a great help, but winter break is coming to a close. I do want to mention that the state is allowing high school students in good academic standing to substitute in elementary grades K through 5. This is in recognition that everyone is dealing with staffing shortages across the state. And as we looked at this possibility, we turned to students for our STEP program, our intern program. So we're working on that. Last check-in, we had about 8 students that were looking to work in this way through the STEP program. As you know, we've been reassigning paraprofessionals when necessary to cover classes, but I have to say that building administrators have also covered classes, and they've also been alerted to the fact that central office staff are also ready to cover classes when necessary. I do want to acknowledge that the staffing shortage has been frustrating for all of us, but it is not something unique to Lunenburg. This is a widespread challenge across the state, and we are all doing the best we can with the staff that we do have to keep the learning going, to keep our buildings open and keep everyone safe. And lastly, today we experienced a significant challenge at TCP. Our phone system was not working today. Both the facilities and IT departments have been trying to troubleshoot the issue. We did some research and connected with the vendor that's connected to this particular phone system. So vertical communication will be on site tomorrow morning. And we will be talking about and seeking short-term solutions, but long-term solutions as well. And that's all I have for you this evening.
All righty, thank you very much. We do not have a student representative this evening, do we? I didn't see one.
I did not, no.
Okay, then under new business, we have a safety team presentation.
So I would like to invite Assistant Principal Brian Duffy and our school resource officer, Brad McNamara, to provide you with a little presentation. Would you like me to screen share, gentlemen?
That would be great.
Okay.
Yes, please.
All right, can everyone see that?
Yes.
So I'll turn it over to you, Brian.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Brian Duffy, Assistant Principal at Lunenburg High School. Grateful to be with you tonight. Our School Resource Officer, Brad McNamara, he and I are here tonight to talk about our district safety team. So a little overview of our district safety team. This team is composed of excuse me, leadership members across the district in terms of schools and departments. So what that looks like are principals, assistant principals, our safety officers, our head of food services, our head of special services, and a host of other folks who come together once a month to talk about the safety of our district. The focus of the key focus areas for this school year have been ALICE drills, having some ALICE drills, which we'll get to in a moment, but also talking about what those look like and making sure they're age appropriate and progressive along that continuum, updating our emergency operation plans or EOPs, and then looking a little bit at our school-based crisis teams. I don't know, Brad, if you want to take over at this point to talk a little bit about the ALICE drills.
Yeah, sure. So we did a training for the staff at each grade level at the beginning of the year. It's been 2 years since we've been, 2.5 years since we've been back in school. So we just wanted to give them a refresher on the whole ALICE procedure and stuff like that. And then we talked about the expectations for the different grade levels and what we would be looking for in the drills. We answered any questions. We went around and we, helped teachers or other staff members that had, questions about what they should do in different situations. And then we conducted a ALICE drill at each school. ALICE revamped their procedures and kind of had age appropriate targets for what you're looking for in each grade level. And then we ran those drills. And I will say this year, by far, the students had taken it the most serious. And they were probably the best ALICE drills we've run. And it's been 2 years since we did anything. So after we conducted the ALICE drills, members of the fire department, school administration, and other members of the police department who are all ALICE trained got together in a room, sat down and critiqued the drill. Hey, where can we improve? What are our strong points? And then we came up with what are we going to look for in the spring drill? And then we got together as a district, and we talked about, hey, what are each school seeing? What are things we need to work on as a district and stuff like that. We've already scheduled ALICE drills for each one of the schools in the springtime, and we'll continue to work to come up and do an ALICE drill over at TCP at some point. I have to get over there the next week or so, and get the groundwork going on that. And other than that, after we did each drill, we had members of the fire department, myself, Hank, and other school administration members walked around the schools to answer any questions, concerns students had. We wanted to be there for them, ensure them that there was a reason behind this, and studies have shown that what kids learn now in grade school, they'll use and take with them throughout the rest of their life. So this tool is not just for a school. Unfortunately, I wish we didn't have to teach this, but this is the world we live in. And these skills will be useful for the children and staff members, throughout their life as they go through.
So in terms of our emergency operation plans as well as crisis teams, so currently each of our schools does have a fairly comprehensive emergency operation plan, but it is our goal to update each of these plans by the end of the school year. And, you know, these plans, really robust plans that really, they capture so the totality of essentially all things, many of which are unfortunate that could happen in a school or to a school community. We anticipate that many, if not all, will not transpire, but these plans sort of provision for the unexpected and the unfortunate. So in terms of our crisis teams, you know, like I said previously, each of our schools has a crisis team, and the composition of those teams is a little bit different depending on the school and the school's, you know, the school's leadership team. But essentially, you know, we talked as a district about the importance of sharing best practices and having a team at each school that is on the ready in case of a sort of a sudden and unexpected, you know, God forbid, a tragedy or something that happened to a student or a family member, a staff member, God forbid. So a team that's ready, you know, at a moment's notice to sort of come together as a group and collaborate on what needs to be done to support the school in case of such a situation.
Was that the last slide?
Sorry, that's our last slide. I'll turn it back to you, Dr. Burnham.
So I'll just say that we have always had a district safety team in the district. There was one in place when I arrived here back in the summer of 2018. And I will echo some of the comments that were made. We have a really strong working relationship with members of the fire department and the police department. They are a critical element to the success of the drills and the preparation that we do on a regular basis to make sure that we're prepared and we do what we need to do to keep the kids all safe and the staff safe as well. So Alice drills has been a focus, but there are many other drills that we do. And in addition to, for the first time, providing some Alice training for staff at the TCP building, we also have been talking about doing some drills that involve those two-way police radios that we received through a grant through the police department 2 years ago. So again, we're looking to continue to enhance the drills that we do so that, you know, if the unthinkable happens, we're as ready as we can be. Again, this, if you look to action plans for the strategy, this was one of those areas under climate and culture that we were looking to ensure that we had a safe school environment. So again, this is work that's been ongoing, but this is a snapshot of the work that's ongoing this year with this group. I don't know if you have any questions that you'd like to ask about the safety work or drills in general or something more specific.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Leighton?
Thank you. I appreciate the drills. I think they're important for the kids, the staff, and you never know what kind of scenarios can happen. So I think just being aware of what can happen and going through scenarios, I think is good for the kids and the staff. I did have a question of, have you ever done any research into like apps that could potentially help? I know my school uses the panic button app where staff can hit the panic button and it notifies the local police.
So I'll turn it over to Brad.
I know at one time we had talked about that, and we were starting to research stuff like that and different things for like when people check into the schools and stuff like that. And then COVID hit, and everything kind of just got put on hold. Now that you bring that up, I know there are other districts and stuff that use things like that. So I will put that on my list of things to do. I'll reach out to some of the surrounding districts. And if you want to send me an email with what your school district uses, I know I'd be more than happy to talk to you about that. And then we'll get together as the district safety team. We'll kind of come up with something to see, hey, what does work for us. Unlike a lot of school departments, we have this, the administrators in our buildings have the ability to directly communicate with the police. They switch to a certain channel and they are able to use the same frequency that we communicate with on a daily basis, which I think is something that not many, I don't know of any other districts that, give, have that relationship with the school and give them access to stuff like that. So we'll continue to work and see what we can come up with.
Are there any other questions? Mrs. Kelly?
I just wanted to thank you, Officer McNamara, especially, and the administrators in the younger grade levels, because I have kids in the younger grades. And obviously, as a parent, you hate to hear of your children having to learn this, but this is the world we live in. But just thank you for your thoughtfulness and consideration in handling the emotions of the younger kids, because I know my kids came home and didn't express fear or express any concerns about going to school. They were very well adjusted coming home, knowing what they're supposed to do. God forbid anything ever happened. So thank you again for your work with the younger kiddos.
Thank you. That's a big part of it. I have to take into consideration the children's developmental stages, their emotions, things like that. Unfortunately, again, it's the world we live in. I don't know if any of you caught the news, but within the last week, that incident in Texas, the rabbi actually said when this was happening, the training he received from police kicked in, and that's what protected them. So that's our goal, is to build on the skills when the kids come right into school and through the rest of their life. It's something that they can take with them and have to keep themselves and their friends and family safe.
If there are no more questions from the committee, I'd just like to thank you both for the time that you put in to do this. And it's reassuring, I'm sure, to parents to know that this is out there. I know you can't divulge details of emergency plans, but we know they're being done, they're being worked on, and the kids are safe. So we thank you very much.
I also want to thank you both for being here to present this evening.
Next is our presentation of the proposed budget for FY23.
All right. So I'll invite Mr. Cassidy to join me in this presentation. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
All righty, so every year the sequence is the same. In December, we bring to you the 5-year staffing plan, and we outline what we see as priorities. Obviously, not considering funding sources at that time, but just identifying priorities for year 1. And then we go back to our work as a leadership team to take a closer look at that and determine priorities that we think we might actually be able to fund in a budget. So our first presentation of a budget is what we're calling the proposed budget. We will be back in March with the recommended budget. And next school committee meeting, we will have a budget question and answer period on the agenda. So as we have always done, we build our budget with our mission and vision in mind, as well as the strategy for continuous improvement. And we've outlined these four, as I call them, big bucket areas: transforming teaching and learning, cultivating climate and culture, communication and operations, equity, access, opportunity and achievement for all. And we'll talk a little bit more about this a little later on in the agenda because I have some updates for you, progress thus far this year with the strategy. We always provide you some context and trends. As you know, the state mandates and reporting requirements, they continue to add more mandates and reporting. And in particular, in the last 2 years, there have been several additional grant funding sources, all related to COVID, all of which require additional reporting and data gathering. We also shared the student enrollment when we shared our 5-year staffing plan, our identified needs in December. We shared our class sizes across the district. This is some new data for you, because as you might have noticed, our enrollment has sort of declined somewhat and leveled off at this time. I think it's important to mention, and we did mention a year ago, that we had seen many families moving to homeschooling out of concern for COVID, and the possible exposure at school. So school year 2021 ended with 119 students being homeschooled. So those are residents of Lunenburg withdrawn from Lunenburg Public Schools and homeschooling. So this head count is not part of our Chapter 70 formula. When we take a look at numbers for the 2021-22, we had 21 students of the 119 return to the district. 68 submitted homeschool plans, which were approved. 20 of these students have moved to another town or city or out of state. And there are some students and families that the district is still working to determine their status. Some of these families we have had a difficult time reaching. But we do anticipate next year that we may see a good number of these 68 return. In a typical year pre-COVID, we might have had a total of low 30s for the number of students on homeschool plans. So there is a possibility that about half of the 68 might return to school next year. Of course, all of that is pending what the COVID conditions are looking like at that time. We also have taken a look previously. This was presented to the school committee. Our director of teaching and learning provided this overview of our MCAS data. I think, the things to look at, last year was a very unique year. Some students took MCAS fully remote from home. Others took it in school. Across the state, districts were doing different schooling plans in terms of their hybrid model. There were many different hybrid models across the state. There really was a limited consistency across school districts in the state, particularly in the first 2/3 of the year. So I think it's important to just note that average growth in any typical year, when you look at MCAS data, your average growth should be in the range between 40 and 60. Now, we have many areas where we fell into that range, but we also have some that did not. And when you take a look at these, you'll notice that math is one of those areas that's a challenge, but we are also aware of that. And that's why we are participating in DESE's math network for selecting high quality materials. And we will be conducting pilots of some of the available evidence-based curricula for math and coming back to you with a recommendation for adoption, hopefully in time for next school year. So there's middle school data, high school data. And as you know, last year, we did not have MCAS data that we typically would have had because there was no spring 2020 MCAS administration. And last year, knowing that we were going to need some data to see where our students were in terms of grade level performance, we moved toward using iReady as an assessment for math and reading in grades K through 5 and have expanded that this year to grade 8. We use these assessments to do benchmarks in both reading and math 3 times a year. We are currently completing the winter benchmark as we speak. We're on the assessment calendar right now. We will be analyzing the data and we will bring a report back to the committee to show results for performance levels as well as growth in February. And again, we always take a look at the numbers of students who are currently on IEPs, and part of the special education process is the requirement to conduct evaluations to determine if students are eligible for special ed services. And once deemed eligible for special ed services, every 3 years, a student has to, again, go through a battery of evaluations or assessments to determine whether or not the child is eligible to continue with special ed services. And as you know, last year we shared this data to justify the need for additional school psychologists for the added testing that we were going to be seeing. We also take a look at our Section 504 data. Currently, we have 142 students on 504 plans. These plans outline accommodations that must be made in order to assist a student in accessing the curriculum. As is true last year, the lowest number of 504s we see is at the primary school, but on the flip side, that's the school that we see the highest number of IEPs, and vice versa. The largest number of 504 plans we see at the high school and fewer IEPs. Behavioral health. We established our behavioral health support teams last year. We continue with that mental health behavior referral process this year as well, in addition to an academic referral process. As of today, there are 20 students that have been identified through this process at the primary school, 25 at the middle. Turkey Hill has 32, and the high school has 26. Important to note that we are also piloting the Trails to Wellness curriculum this year. Tier 1 SEL curriculum is being delivered in grades K through 8. As a Tier 1, it's a whole class curriculum, and our guidance counselors, and in some cases our social workers, are also helping to deliver that Tier 1 curriculum. That same curriculum has Tier 2 supports, and those Tier 2 supports appropriate for grades K through 12 are being delivered through our social workers. We will have a full presentation of all things connected back to academics at the February 2nd meeting, and all things connected back to the work that we're doing with social emotional learning, behavioral health at the February 16th meeting. So much more data and information to come in the month of February. And you'll be hearing directly from the folks who are doing the work. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Cassidy on this slide.
Good evening, everyone. Mike Cassidy, Business Manager and HR Director. Just a point of reference at this point in the presentation. So the budget is made up of primarily basically two sources. It's Chapter 70 funds, which is what this slide is, and then local funds. So that's the local budget. Or the operating budget. We also have a number of grants which will be on the next slide, and we do have revolving accounts that fund those specific programs. But the bulk of the budget and the bulk of the local budget, all of the local budget, I should say, is funded by Chapter 70 funds and supported by town revenues. So the portion of that the state gives us every year, and this has been a topic of the finance committee, the school committee over the last couple of months, as far as what the state has been giving us, and it seems to have been stagnated just due to the Student Opportunity Act and the way the district falls into that formula. But we're riding pretty steady between 36 and 37% of our budget. We have not received our FY23 amount, and we'll get that sometime at the end of this month. To my knowledge, the governor has not released his preliminary budget, which is usually when we start getting the estimates of the allocations for Chapter 70. As soon as those amounts are released, the school committee will be provided an update. As I mentioned before, we've got the local budget, which is state and local funds. We also have received a plethora of grants with COVID funds. When I first started here in Lunenburg, there were six grants: the federal grants and then the family and community grant. We've been getting additional grants through the COVID Relief Act. ESSER 2, ESSER 3 is probably the most familiar to most people in town, but we've gotten some other additional grants, some competitive, some entitlement. So these will benefit us as we bring students up due to the loss of instruction due to COVID. Some of the positions will be reevaluated for sustainability as the grants expire. So there's a lot of money here. We're implementing this as we go. And this is a good opportunity for me to state that there will be an ESSER update at the next school committee meeting as well. So I'll turn it back to the superintendent.
I'm sorry, I'm having trouble advancing my screen. Let me stop sharing for a minute. Interesting, still can't advance my screen. We need a technology upgrade, Mr. Cassidy.
Hopefully it's not connected to the phone system in the building.
All right, let me try something else.
you want me to try to share?
Sure. Excellent. It's always good to have a co-host. Thank you, Mr. Cassidy.
Can you see that display settings? Oh, okay. Are you ready? Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Are you gonna, I thought this was your slide.
Oh, certainly, I can take it. Thank
Oh,
you.
okay, okay.
As always, we work with our budget priorities. We work to develop a budget that meets student needs, but also aligns with the work of the strategy for continuous improvement. And again, those 4 big bucket areas, as we call them, transforming teaching and learning, cultivating climate and culture, communication and operations, equity, access, opportunity, achievement for all students. And again, we always include this for the benefit of the public that might take a look at this slideshow at a later date. This outlines the process that we go through starting in late or mid-August, all the way through till the budget is finally approved at the town meeting in May. And we went over this process when we presented identified needs in December. This is a slide that we shared with you in December, year 1 of the revised 5-year staffing plan. And those were all of the positions in different categories that we discussed, many of them instructional, others leadership. And when I say leadership, I'm not talking about administration. We do think of teacher leadership roles. And then there were some positions that were service and supports. But these were the positions that we presented in December.
Okay, I'll take it from here. So the next step is just talking about what we're about to propose as far as including some of those positions and some other costs that we're anticipating in the budget. So without further ado, the FY23 proposed budget for the Lunenburg Public Schools. So at this time, we're proposing a 3.11% increase. And that's an increase in personnel of 3.27, in non-personnel costs of 3.05. And we'll get into some of the details on that. I just want to point this out to the committee that there is a detailed budget sheet in the shared file, which if it's not already loaded up onto our website, it will be first thing tomorrow morning for the public. So what does this budget include? It includes the contractual increases of all the contracts that we settled last year. It includes all the longevity and degree advancements. The longevity increases of paraprofessionals, teachers, secretaries, and custodians, and the degree advancements of our teaching staff. It also includes an 8% increase for insurance, and that was the amount that was provided by the town manager. And that number is based on new employees and current enrollment. So when I say new employees, it means new positions that we're contemplating. It also includes the general education transportation increase, which is an estimate, and any new proposed positions. So let's talk about those new positions. So new staff positions, which is basically an offset. So when we say an offset, it's basically looking at current positions and reshifting that FTE in another area. So we're proposing a STEM technology teacher at the primary school, which will be the FTE swapping off. That will be the technology / librarian in that building. And then same goes for Turkey Elementary School, which is it's the librarian. The FTE would be the resources would be reallocated to a STEM and technology position.
And I'll just jump in here. I think it's important context for the committee and for the public. We weren't initially thinking about losing a librarian position. Initially in our conversations, we were talking about adding a science and technology teaching position. And when we took a look at all of the identified needs, sometimes we try to get creative and prioritize need. And this was one of those situations where, not to minimize the benefit of a school library or the benefit it provides, to lifelong learning and love of the library and reading. But we thought that a hands-on science and technology, so coding as an example of some technology that could be done, would be potentially more beneficial and have a greater academic impact. Additionally, as you know, in the lower grades, our teachers teach all subject areas. You know that we're doing an awful lot of professional development and exploring additional curriculum resources for our literacy work. But next year, we're looking to be piloting a new math curriculum. So that's also going to require professional development and teachers getting acclimated to a new curriculum. That's a lot. That alone is an awful lot, but then those teachers also are responsible for teaching our social studies standards and our science standards. So this was an idea that also presented us an opportunity to alleviate some of what our self-contained classroom teachers are responsible to have knowledge in and prep curriculum and lessons for delivery in the classroom. So again, this is not something that, we set out to eliminate library. And if we had more resources available, we might not have considered that at all. But we would like to see introduction of STEM and technology at the lower grades. All right, so I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Cassidy.
Thank you, Dr. Burnham. Also, other staff adjustments. On the needs for next year, we had identified a grade 4 teacher. We are moving the grade 3 FTE to follow that class. So no new budgeted position. It's just that that budgeted FTE position will follow that class. So that'll take care of that need. We're also proposing a part-time, increasing the part-time music teacher at Turkey Hill Elementary by 1 class. And that the way we're looking at the schedule, that may or will offer some opportunities for students to participate in band, and I believe it's a vocal, or chorus. Is that true, Dr. Burnham?
Yes.
Okay.
So essentially, our music program will begin at the elementary level. As you can imagine, COVID has had an impact on our band program. So our music teachers at the middle high school are very passionate about restoring and growing that program again, and have for many years been advocating to take the music program, chorus and band, to the elementary school level.
Thank you. So the new budgeted positions that are appearing in the FY23 proposed budget. We are including a new kindergarten teacher, because the enrollment at this point has, I believe we just started enrollment in kindergarten. So an additional class would need a teacher and a paraprofessional. To assist in the library at both schools, there will be a shared position of a paraprofessional handling some oversight of the library at the primary in Turkey Hill. There's also an intervention teacher at Lunenburg High School. And finally, we're proposing an athletic trainer at the Lunenburg Middle High School. So the next few slides, I'm going to turn back over to the superintendent. It really is going to focus in on some of the needs and what some of these new positions look like. So the STEM and technology and STEM position, and the intervention position, and the athletic trainer. So Dr. Burnham.
Thank you. So when we think about a dedicated STEM teacher, STEM classroom, in the rotation of specials, we're talking about a hands-on active learning opportunity for students in science, but it's not just science. The science curriculum framework for Massachusetts is very heavy into skills, problem solving, design. It's a lot of out of the box creative thinking and problem solving. That's what this particular type of class will be able to start to foster for students at the youngest ages. And as you know, math and science skills oftentimes go hand in hand. Again, you know, this type of learning, one of the skills is analyzing information, evaluating designs, rethinking, reflective thinking, problem solving over and over. Perseverance is one of the things that we see in the teacher rubric. We look to see when we're in classrooms that teachers are fostering our students to learn to become motivated, not to give up, to continue to try. So again, this hands-on science class would bring that benefit for our youngest learners and develop some good thinking habits, problem-solving habits early. And again, our students will still have access to the library and books in that library. And as far as making sure that our library is current and doesn't become outdated, our Title I coordinator will also step in to review inventory at the libraries and make recommendations for any new titles that should be purchased and added to the library. I will say that the librarian at the Turkey Hill Elementary in recent years has done a very good job of going through the inventory, pulling out books that you know, may no longer be of interest to students, as well as bringing in titles that offer diversity in terms of characters and authors. So we do recognize that the library is important in the school, but again, classroom libraries exist as well as book rooms. There are many, many opportunities for students to access quality text. Intervention at the high school. We're looking for a teacher who can provide direct instruction to students that have been identified as needing support. This work would be done in small groups, and it would replace an independent study class. So in other words, that class that we call study hall is independent study, and it would be transitioned to this support class. This particular teacher would also function as a liaison between classroom teachers and the student to ensure that the student has what they need to be successful, and can also be a liaison to our parents and keeping them current with how the student is doing academically. We're talking about a licensed teacher with some experience working with struggling learners. And the athletic trainer position. This position we see as supporting the athletic director, but also the health office. We've gone over the benefits of this particular position for several years at this point. But maintaining an athletic training program for high school and middle school athletes, which includes athletic conditioning, athletic injury prevention and treatment, injury rehab, and the concussion return to play protocol is part of this position. Overseeing sports medicine in general for all athletes. This position, we would be looking to establish some specific hours on a daily basis for this trainer to be available to athletes. This individual could attend home competitions and be available by phone to other teams as well. They would be able to assess and treat injuries, and then also supervise rehabilitation of an injury. This is also important. They would be maintaining records of these injuries, including concussion. So this is going to help in our health office. It takes some of that burden off of our nurses. And lastly, coordinate all reports of injuries for the purpose of insurance.
I'd like to add that there are some districts currently that have wonderful models on what athletic trainers do. So yeah, it's a new position, but some other districts have had great success hiring and implementing the trainer in their district. So we're not necessarily starting from scratch. So I'm confident that it will make a good impact on students.
All right, now turn it back to you, Mr. Cassidy.
Okay, all right, thank you. So there's quite a few positions that are being changed and quite a few positions that are being added to the budget. So let's talk about some of the positions that didn't make the cut. So one of the positions was a counselor, Tier 1 SEL at the primary and the elementary school. We are going to be seeking alternative funding from grants for that position, and that will be presented to the school committee at some point. The technology teacher at the high school, an additional LEA, ELA, not LEA, ELA in history. Well, actually, they would be an LEA teacher, wouldn't they? Excuse me. So it's an ELA and history teacher, and then the STEP VHS position at the high school, and an interventionist paraprofessional that would assist the teacher are all being tabled at this time, and we'll reevaluate them as we start the new school year. And certainly these are going to be positions that, if additional funding does become available, will be considered on the list. The psychologist, K-5, which would probably end up being at the primary school. We're looking at funding that specific position out of our federal SPED grants for next school year. The nurse substitute will not be funded by the local budget again. It'll be moved to the Department of Public Health grant that was awarded to the district with the help of Katie McGuire for FY23. That position at one point was going to fade away, but it's going to be supported by another year with a grant. And let me just tell the committee that grant was specifically for the additional nurse position. So currently we have 4 licensed LPNs in the district that are supporting all of our school nurses on a variety of work that's being done out of the nurses' offices. We are going to table funding those positions at this point until we can reevaluate what the conditions are going to be like at the start of next school year. We may end up using local budget or seek alternative funding. And at one point we had talked about 4 building substitutes, permanent substitutes, an extra person that would be used to cover open classes on a daily basis. Same as our LPNs. We'll reevaluate supporting those positions at the beginning of next school year and seek alternative funding. The instructional math specialist is not being funded by the local budget. That is being funded by ESSER 3. That was earmarked in the original grant application. We're supporting some of that work this year with a stipend through ESSER 3. We're going to roll out a full-time position next year under ESSER 3. And the transportation coordinator that was offered up on the plan is going to be reevaluated on a needs basis. So let's go back to that year 1 summary that was presented in December and also presented earlier tonight. So the positions in red are either being supported or being proposed to be supported by the local budget, or they're being funded by grants for next school year. So the proposed FY23 budget, once again, at $22,325,309 is broken down as follows. So it's once again, it's a 3.1% increase. So the increase is 253,000 and some change just to have level services. So that's all the budget increases, the collective bargaining increases. New positions we're proposing is $212,000. We have a small salary reserve. In years past, you've seen that amount around the $200,000 mark. We have 3 administrative contracts and the secretarial negotiations going on right now to support whatever is finally negotiated. And once again, there was a significant increase in our expense line item due to the increase, proposed increase for health insurance. So speaking of unknown factors that were estimated in the local budget, it's that health insurance projected increase of 8%. The way it was explained to me, it will not exceed 8%. We are hoping that over the next 6 weeks, that amount will be reduced at some level. But we've been told that it will not exceed 8% of the budgeted, the actual amount from last year. And when I say that, so remember there was a, going back to this budget year, the district and employees got a 1 month of non-payment. So there was a reduction. There's a significant increase because we're bringing the insurances up to 12 months, and then we're adding an 8% increase on top of that. And a portion of that increase at this time is being offset by school choice funding. So as we get that final number from the town manager, we're definitely going to be looking at that line item again and making some final adjustments. School transportation. So the bid is currently out, and there's been a lot of interest in the bid. We won't know that final amount until February 17th. And that number in that contract will be presented to the school committee at the first meeting in March. So some other factors, guess you call them unknowns, which is Chapter 70 funds. We haven't received the allocations yet for districts. We are anticipating a small increase to our Chapter 70 funds. I want to remain optimistic. I would like a moderate, but I don't think we're going to take a reduction from some of the things that I'm hearing from the business office or the finance office at DESE. Circuit breaker looks like we're going to be getting about 65% of our expenses back, and we're waiting for an adjustment based upon our out-of-district transportation. We haven't seen that increase yet, but there should be a slight increase based upon the amount of money that we spend on out-of-district transportation. Federal and state grants. So I'm talking about Title I, our DESE special education grants. At this point, we're looking at them to be level funded. No known dramatic increases at this time. And then finally, COVID grants. We remain optimistic that as the state receives additional funding, that some of those allocations, either through entitlements or competitive grants, will be eligible. Lunenburg will be eligible for submissions. I just mentioned this a minute ago. So some additional factors, and this is really tied to the salary reserve, is we're currently in negotiations with our secretarial union. And then we've got 3 administrative contracts that need to be settled before June 30th. So this is a schedule I think we've shared with you possibly in December, but our next steps is rolling out this budget presentation to school-based staff. We'll be meeting with the town manager after this presentation. She's requested a detailed budget as well as this presentation, this PowerPoint presentation. We will be doing question and answering session at the February 2nd and March 2nd school committee meeting. And we will be providing updates at every school committee meeting as those unknowns become known. We won't be providing budget updates or adjustments. We won't be providing new budgets to you. What we'll be doing is if we get a health insurance percentage increase, we'll definitely share that information with you, but we won't be providing new budgets as we get these new numbers. We want to present our proposed, and we're looking to present our recommended in March. And that will be done on March 16th. And then the following night will be a presentation that the superintendent and I will make at the finance committee. And finally, on March 7th, 2022, the school department budget will be presented at the town meeting for the town approval. I'm going to turn it over to the superintendent, but I just want to say one final word. I don't know how many times we've mentioned this is proposed. I don't know how many times in the heading it says proposed. This is a proposed budget as we're looking at what we know right now. So as the budget becomes more clear, we will make adjustments. As we receive information from the school committee, from the public, from the town manager, we'll make adjustments. But as of January 19th, this is what we're proposing at this time. And as numbers become more clear and hopefully our insurance goes down, we'll get closer to that 2.5% that we're really hoping to strive for. So Dr. Burnham, I'll turn it over to you to the next slide for any final comments, and then we can turn it over for questions to the school committee. And I will say there's no action for the school tonight. As we move forward on the Q&As over the next couple of meetings, we'd be happy to answer any detailed questions that you may have at that time. Dr. Brennan.
I would just, for a frame of reference, we work with the leadership team to develop the 5-year staffing plan and prioritize positions for year 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Then we get down to what do we realistically think that we can fund, and we start to get creative with some models to secure as much of what we need to benefit students as possible. The budget presented this evening is a little bit over 3%, but as numbers become known, that percent may decrease without making any adjustments to any of the positions that were included in this presentation this evening. It's also, I think, we're well aware that we are likely going to have to provide a budget that is 2.5%. But again, we're at the very earliest stages of this process. More information needs to become firm and known, and we will continue to look at the impact of known quantities and how that changes what ultimately comes before you in a recommended budget. These budgets are never easy to get to. But we're also open to feedback from the committee as to your thoughts on the priorities that we've outlined here in the budget. So I'll turn it back to you, Mrs. Archambault, and we'll be happy to take questions.
All right. Are there any questions from the committee? Mr. Schoenbrini.
Dr. Burnham, how likely is it that the budget will go down given the current rate of general inflation?
We don't really know. I think, and Mr. Cassidy can jump in here. I think that the wild card number that we always look at isn't so much Chapter 70. That seems to have remained somewhat steady in recent years. We're not seeing big increases there, but we're not seeing decreases either. For us, the impact really comes when we know what the health insurance increase. That tends to have the most significant impact to what we're looking at in the budget. Mr. Cassidy, you have a different opinion on that?
No, I think, we've built our projections through our collective bargaining negotiations at 2.5% over the next 3 years. So, that was not met with any objection. So by the town manager. So, we're anticipating the 2.5%. The insurance, an 8% increase is a drastic increase. The last 2 years, this year was just a slight increase of, I think, 0.03%. And the year before that was right around 1%. So it does have the insurance is going to have an impact moving forward. It's going to take away from some of our resources for sure if it stays at 8%. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just, we do budgeting for my office and everything's more expensive. So I'm just curious if you guys had built in the inflation cushion, and it sounds like the healthcare is the inflation writ large on the budget.
Yeah. Like I said, when we did our projections for negotiations, we did have that increase moving forward. So we had some plans on how to address that. 80% is a little bit higher than I was anticipating, but I have faith that number will come down a little bit. And then just to be clear, and this might be new information, especially for some of the new school committee members. Also under the expense budget, there's a lot of supply and equipment accounts that are being presented on that 7-page budget document. So those are actual numbers that are solicited by either our secretaries, our teachers on costs, current costs, and then some shipping costs. So when we're looking for science supplies, there's backup on exactly what we're buying with current date information with an adjustment for shipping. So I know those aren't big amounts, but there's a lot of detail that has been provided by the schools to get those numbers to be as precise as possible.
Okay, Mrs. Kelly?
I fully understand the need for the STEM and technology position. I know the primary school and the elementary school have been struggling with all the new curriculum demands and changes, and that is wonderful that we'll be able to provide them some assistance. I guess my concern goes back to how do we continue to, cultivate the love of books for children? I know it's becoming a more technological world, and that's especially been heightened throughout COVID. And I just worry about not going back to stressing the importance of a book to a child. And I know the younger kids, especially, they love their library time, they're assisted in getting books. Are we going to filter that in another way through the curriculum? Because I'd hate to see them lose that at such a young age and have them turn to the iPad to read. And, maybe I'm old fashioned, but there's something about reading a book.
There absolutely is. That's actually my preferred.
Yeah, exactly.
Although I've discovered the audio book and I'm really enjoying that too. So because I can read while I drive that way. We have no intention of moving to a digital library. We anticipate that having our Title I coordinator who is working directly with the teachers, grades K through 5, on curriculum, lesson planning, resources. She is going to have a deep knowledge of gaps that might exist in texts, different reading levels, different genres, titles that are more current. So we have every confidence that our Title I director, who was here on the meeting a little earlier, I don't see her now, that she's going to be able to assist with ensuring that we have books in the library, in the classroom, in our book room, which is a lending book room for the purpose of instruction, classroom instruction. So you can go as a teacher to the book room and take out a set of 6 books, all the same, to work in small groups, with small groups reading the same text. So we are working to make sure that we have access to quality texts, real texts that we can touch, available in a variety of ways in and around the school. Additionally, we have a really good working relationship with the library. I know that COVID has intervened a little bit here, but you may recall that our 5th graders were weekly, 1 class at a time, not the whole 5th grade. They were visiting the library on a weekly basis. They were walking up to the library, taking out books, returning books. So again, I want to make sure that this isn't translated that we don't value the importance of a library, or that we don't value the importance of an actual printed text. We do. And this should not signal an intentional move of the district to pivot to digital text resources. Yes, we'll have some, but that is not a goal that we're looking to achieve. Does that help answer the question?
I did. Thank you.
Anyone else on the committee with the question? Mr. Leighton?
I did appreciate the explanation on the athletic director, the detailed duties that they have, because as a coach, I know that it's, I can't imagine not having an athletic trainer, so I was glad to see that. But I think the big item was definitely the librarians. I think having scenarios, I think whether it's Mr. Adams or Ms. Champagne, even coming on and giving some scenarios of what the teachers are going to be doing. We don't want to overload the teachers with more objectives and curriculum that they have to add on top. So making sure we understand where the STEM objectives are going to be hit. And then also the librarian curriculum objectives, that we're still making sure we hit those as well.
Ms. Shapiro?
Just kind of to add to the reading conversation here, I agree that it's super important. And this is actually a little throwback to my days when I was in Mr. Adams' classroom, actually. But up through middle school, we had, I think it was called SSR, like sustained silent reading time. And it was like 20 or 30 minutes a day, like right before lunch, where like the only option of anything we had to do was to read an actual book. And it was actually a point that even though most of us had the Kindle app on like our iPod Touch or whatever, like it was a point that it was like, you have to read a paper book for 20 to 30 minutes. Like, I don't remember exactly how long, but even something little like that was absolutely huge, because at that point we didn't have a really intense library curriculum in middle school, but just those like 20 minutes of reading every day really built up a routine and made it like a staple part of our day. So I think even if we kind of go the more individual classroom route, I think there's definitely ways to keep the kids reading.
For sure. And I don't know if, I don't want to put Mr. Adams on the spot. Because I didn't ask you to be prepared for this evening's presentation of the budget. But is there anything that you want to offer to the committee hearing some of their questions and concerns?
So Chad Adams, I'm the primary school principal. I have heard all of your concerns about the reading. I think we're really working right now at having a really good balance between having those in-hand texts and incorporating the technology where we can. We're not trying to force fit technology into places that it doesn't belong. I know I see students walking around the building with books all the time, so I fully appreciate that. And we really want to continue that. As a matter of fact, I think second grade for the first time, maybe actually even sending home books with students that they've never done that before. So, I'd like to, we tried to be creative with a solution. We fully understand that we're going to have to continue to hit those library standards, Ms. Leighton, and make sure that those are covered. So that is part of the future plan, depending on what happens. There is no plan to just go all technology and all iPads and all screen time. I can tell you that right now. That there's that inherent value, that love of picking up a book and opening a brand new book for the first time and listening to it crack right open and then flipping through the pages. We're still modeling that for students. We still have reading time. Teachers will still read to students out of a book to model good reading practices and just have students listen to stories. And then students still have that opportunity to read books on a regular basis too. It's a lot of what we're doing is more of an option, right? It's more that what do students prefer? I've been in a few observations where students had an opportunity to do independent reading, and they could do it a couple different ways. So I think that's just a great option to have. But like I said, we're still modeling that. Yep, this is a book. This is where it's at. So just be rest assured that we're not going down that path of just complete online libraries.
Any thoughts you want to add relative to the thinking around hands-on science?
Yes, like Dr. Burnham talked about, we definitely are aware that there's a lot of work involved with continuing with the literacy, the curriculums for literacy, and we really need to work on our math curriculum. We're going to be looking at a new math curriculum in the fall. That's a lot. Those are basically, you're looking at two brand new major components, at least at the primary level, curriculums, math and literacy. Anything that we could do to help the teaching staff to try to provide them more time to plan and more time to work collaboratively and more time to refine those units so that they can provide that quality instruction. That's what we were looking for. We saw this the STEM opportunity as a great way to do that, by because it would incorporate the science, a lot of the science standards that they need to be taken care of in the classroom. And also there was a lot of great things about that STEM curriculum, the experimentation, the collaboration work, right? We have kids that haven't really been able to work together in a group and solve problems together and figure out how to work with each other for a long period of time. So this might present itself as that opportunity to help with that. To try and fail, right? That's one of the STEM tenets, right? It's okay to fail, to try and test ideas and work with other students. I just saw it as a possible opportunity and a possible solution to what we have, to what we're facing going into next year. And to be honest with you, my media technology person, who's also my librarian, has presented me with a great presentation about a makerspace, which encompasses a lot of those STEM ideals. You know, for the programming, for the robots that we have, for coding, for engineering with Legos and all sorts of great things. So I think it would provide an opportunity for students who would learn best through that tactile, kinesthetic kind of group work. It gives them another opportunity to shine and maybe show some skills that we may not know that are there because we haven't given them those opportunities. So yeah, I'm supportive of the STEM position. If we can make it happen for a number of reasons, and you know, we'll take it as it goes, depending on what comes back from the budget and what we have to reevaluate and go from there.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I was smiling the whole time, especially when Sophie said, "No, Mr. Adams, we used to do SSR." I was like, "Oh, I got to get on because it's going to come up."
I just have a couple of questions along those same lines. Actually, concerned about research that would be taught by the elementary school librarian, you know, 4th or 5th grade, where the kids are starting to do the Google thing and starting to work that way. I mean, librarians are not just books, they are information people. And that piece I have concerns about we're trying to pick some weight off the classroom teacher. Well, now they've got to do this. So there's a bit of a trade-off there that I don't know how comfortable I am with. And the other thing is the science standards that are done at the primary level, let's say, very familiar with having taught them. They're different than the engineering ones. So I love the STEM thing. I think it's so important for kids. And I understand the idea of the makerspace and that whole thing. When I would do engineering in my classroom, that's a whole other tornado idea. But the regular science standard, are those still being taught by the classroom teachers? Is this looking at, we're taking science off the classroom teachers? Because once a week of STEM is not going to pass 5th grade MCAS. I don't think, in my opinion. So I'm a little nervous about that.
Okay.
So I would address this in a couple of ways. Yes, there'll be some technology engineering components to what we do with this classroom. There will also be content standards, information, science information that would be part of the classroom. We're also looking at the possibility of teaming, even in grade 2 or grade 3, teaming teachers together, and then further allowing teachers to narrow the scope of the content that they are responsible to know well, plan well, and deliver well. If we can do that, the folks who focus on the literacy, social studies content and science content through informational text can become part of the literacy instruction.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we would have to approach it in a very deliberate way to make sure that we could incorporate as much of the science standards through the hands-on STEM class, as well as through literacy. And quite frankly, you know, in some cases, possibly even in the math class. There's a lot of connection back to science and those standards at the lower grades to math as well.
Well, that would just be my hesitation in doing it this way. But thank you for your answers. Anyone else? Thank you for all the effort in putting all this together. This is a monumental task. And the thinking outside the box is definitely worth the endeavor. So I thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
Okay, so I believe next we have the FY23 school calendar.
So this is the first iteration of the school calendar. To this point, we have solicited input from the teachers of the Professional Development Committee as far as placement of the 2 full-day professional development days. Input from the principals relative to the half-days, because those are largely going to be used for building-based professional development. The principals also worked with their building leadership teams and their school advisory councils. So there you're getting the input from parents as well. This has had a lot of input from a variety of different lenses, but now this is a draft. And now we're going to put it out for the public to view, for you to view, and any thoughts you might have. We're happy to take your input and think through that. We're also going to be looking for parents to provide feedback through LPS Online. Teachers also have already provided some feedback as well. So we would bring this back to you, ideally February 2nd, in a final form after we have an opportunity to hear some input and make adjustments based on input. But this is just a first public showing of a potential draft calendar.
Okay, any questions about the calendar? Okay, well then we'll take a look at it for our next meeting. Next, we have the health office update.
So I would invite Katie McGuire, our health and safety officer.
Hi, good evening,
Hi,
everyone.
I'll turn it over to you, Katie.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to provide this update to you all. I'll start quickly with our COVID update for the district. The town positivity rate on January 14th was 22.49, and the state positivity rate is 16.7. Last week in the district, we had 75 positive cases of COVID, and this week so far, 35. An update on our test and stay program. We've administered 320 tests to 144 staff and students. And the vaccination numbers for the town, 5 to 11-year-olds are at 44% fully vaccinated, 12 to 15-year-olds, 80%, and 16 to 19-year-olds, 81%. I was able to calculate out the numbers for each school. So the high school is at 71% fully vaccinated, middle school 58%, Turkey Hill 45%, and the primary school is 34% vaccinated. Quick update on our safety protocol review team. We've met twice so far, and really there have been no opportunities to really make any changes. Just some things were mandated by the state and some things were tightened up, but no real changes to protocol. I also wanted to just give you all an update on the health offices and how we're handling things there this year. Typically, the structure for the district is 4 RNs, 1 in each building. We were able to add the sub for the middle school that gave me the opportunity to serve as the safety officer for the district, health and safety officer. This year, we were also fortunate enough to add the 4 LPN positions, 1 for each of the health offices. We are so grateful for this additional staff. Having this staff on board actually provided us with the opportunity to get caught up on things like physicals, immunizations. We started some of our screenings, just getting caught up on data entry, DPH reports. We review records for all the new students entering the district, and then on the onboarding of all the new kindergarten students and pre-K, all of that data has to be entered, and everything has to be reviewed. So like I said, having those LPNs provided us with the opportunity to start getting caught up with some of this. Then the surge hit. So I wanted to give you a little bit of a picture of what it's like in the health office when we have a positive student. We will reach out to the parent. We'll discuss with the parent isolation protocol, talk about siblings, if any of the siblings will need to quarantine, discuss accessing schoolwork and how the student can access their schoolwork from their teachers. Talk about when they might need to follow up with their primary care provider, or seek emergency care, depending on how they're doing with their COVID symptoms. And then discuss the return to school date and calculate out the dates with the parents. And then all of this information is also sent out in a follow-up email to the parent. So then we move on to contact tracing. When we do the contact tracing, we're going to look at a student's schedule, their classroom, to try to determine any possible contacts. We have seating plans for every single room in the district. Think about like at the high school in 8th grade, where students change classes all day long. We will look at every room a student has been in and look at every contact around the student. So we could have upwards of 30 contacts for one student for the high school. We then make a list of all the potential contacts. We check attendance, we check previous, if they've had COVID within the last 90 days, we check vaccination status. We email all of the 3 to 6 foot contacts. Then we reach out by phone to any 0 to 3 foot contacts, and we'll offer test and stay program to those families. And then just a quick word about test and stay. Really, the parents have been so thankful. A few parents have opted not to utilize it, but for the most part, parents have just been so thankful that we're offered that opportunity, that students will not have to miss any learning time. It was a little tough getting it up and running. The follow through from the state wasn't quite there for the staffing, but we were able to get it going. And I'm so grateful that we added that clerk position. It's a huge help. I wanted to address some conversations with families. Most families have been understanding, appreciative of what we're doing. We have had some challenging conversations. We try to always remind families that we are implementing the guidance from DPH and DESE. This is just not this is not what we are choosing to do. We are implementing the guidance. This is really a very challenging thing for us to not have students come to school. School nurses keep kids in their seats learning. That's what we do. So this is a really tough part of our job that we're not doing right now. So in a little context more about what nurses are still doing in the office besides COVID, injuries, illnesses, we're administering medications, tube feedings, we're treating students with diabetes, with asthma, we develop care plans and help to train the staff if they have students with seizures or other chronic medical conditions in their classrooms. All of the regular activities are going on in the health office aside from COVID. We're also incredibly grateful for our guidance counselors and social workers and the supports that they are providing. It's made such a huge difference, especially these additional positions. But just a word that we're still the safe place for a lot of kids, and we're happy with that. We're glad that students feel comfortable coming to us, but sometimes they will still ask to see the nurse if they're not quite sure how they're going to be able to cope with what they're feeling right now. They're feeling overwhelmed or a little anxious. It's easier to say, I want to go to the nurse. So we love to support those kids. We love making those connections with those kids and reinforcing and encouraging those coping skills that they try to help them stay in class. But that's a really wonderful part of our job that we enjoy doing. We're proud that we are that safe space for the kids. Then the surge, like I said, the surge hit. It's been a very challenging couple of weeks. The phone calls, the emails, the nurses are answering emails at night, on the weekends. We're feeling like we can barely keep up, and we really don't have enough time to do all of the things that we should be doing. And honestly, we cannot imagine if we didn't have the extra positions, the LPNs that were added this year, but also the support that we get from administration. I just don't know how we would have made this all, how we would have made it as far as we have. In a very challenging year.
Well, we thank you for everything you and the other nurses are doing. It's a monumental task.
I can't speak highly enough of what an amazing team we have here for the nurses. They're just incredible. So thank you.
In the press conference a couple of days ago, the commissioner spoke of the work that our nurses in our school districts have been doing, and said that they are the true heroes. They absolutely have done heroic work. It's a monumental task every single day. I just listening to all of the things that they do, all the responsibilities, COVID, and then all of the regular care and nursing that's provided on a daily basis, in addition to the social emotional connection for kids who are dealing with psychosomatic issues or just anxiety in general. I don't know about you, but as you listen to her relate that series of responsibilities that they have, it's overwhelming just to listen to it. And they're actually doing it every single day. They are truly heroes. There aren't enough words, and there certainly isn't enough money, to demonstrate what they have meant through the last 22 months, but especially this year. We are so grateful that we have the nurses that we do. And we've added some really great LPNs to the team. We are very, very lucky to have the nurses we do.
Thank you.
Katie, do you want to talk a little bit about what we learned today on the conference call, the webinar on the new testing option? So that happened this afternoon. We were on for an hour and we talked briefly, but there's information that we need to go looking for in order to determine what is the best next path for the district, what's the right fit for us. And that's why we needed that additional time. I couldn't bring a recommendation to you this evening because we really haven't had time to think through the logistics and what's the right choice for Lunenburg. So we will be back with that tomorrow night. But we can share with you a little bit about what we learned through the webinar this afternoon. Mr. Cassidy was also on that webinar this afternoon, so he may want to add comment at some point. But I'll let you start, Katie.
So let's see. So there will be an opportunity for the district to distribute at-home tests to students. But in order for that to happen, we need to participate in either the symptomatic testing program or the routine pooled testing program. So, or both. If we do that, then we can also provide these tests, these home tests that they'll take home one kit every other week and test once a week with a test at home. Then if we do that, we can discontinue the test and stay program if we choose. And we can also discontinue the contact tracing. So I've been doing a lot of research. We'll go into more of this tomorrow, talking to other nursing coordinators in other districts who have done pool testing, who have done symptomatic testing, the pros and cons. I reached out to our medical director, so we'll have some of that information. But basically, in order to provide these home tests, we have to either switch to the symptomatic and/or pool testing. Both of those are a heavy lift. So it's a lot of work, a lot of paperwork, consents. There's a lot to it, and it will change how we're doing some things for sure. And the reason that they felt we could discontinue the test and stay is that I think it was 98 or 99% of the tests have come back negative for the students who identified as the closest contacts. So these are kids, these are lunch contacts from 0 to 3, no mask, the closest contacts. So it is demonstrating that the transmission is not likely in the buildings. So they felt like test and stay could probably be eliminated.
Mr. Cassidy, anything to add?
Yeah, it's my opinion that, and I think they stressed this during the presentation, is that this is a new program, an expansion of some of the work that they're trying to offer. They're trying to adjust the offerings for districts based upon the data that they're seeing. It was my understanding that the test and stay program is still available.
Yes.
So that is still an option on the table for districts. And
However,
Yeah.
if we choose to stay with test and stay, we cannot
Yes.
participate with the home tests.
exactly.
And we would have to continue contact tracing.
Right. So I think, and these are some of the unknowns, at least from what I heard. This is a program that only goes to February 22nd, April 22nd. So it's a short window that this is an opportunity. I would imagine if the numbers go down, we could always go back to the test and stay program. We can opt out of it. But it looks like they're trying to capture February vacation and April vacation. That's just, I don't think they said that, but just looking at the dates, that's what I'm forecasting. So there's another piece to this as well, which is offering tests to employees as well. And there's a consent form that they would have to sign up, employees would have to sign off on, and we would distribute the tests to employees. And we're trying to get some clarification on whether the requirements of the employees, and we're waiting for that consent form to be shared with us, so we know exactly what the employees will be required to do. So it sounds like a good opportunity for employees if they utilize it. But the devil is in the details, and we really need to research this. It's well, it's a little bit later now, but the information was about five or 6 hours old, and we didn't have enough time to offer a recommendation to the school committee in that short period.
And I just want to also add, just to be clear, that the nurses, the school district is required to report any positive cases that result from the home tests. Parents and staff, as part of the sign off to opt into this home testing, would agree that they would report any positive results to the school, and we then also have to report all of that to the state. So it's not as simple as just handing out home tests. That would have been nice. But that's not what it's going to be. So we really need to analyze the options, figure out the benefits and our capacity to run either of the other testing programs. So we have a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, so we'll begin our conversation about, which of these other test options that come along with home tests is the best way forward for us. But I think we're inclined to be moving in a direction where we're looking to provide the home tests. In other words, pausing test and stay and moving in this other direction, I think is where we're likely to land. We just don't know yet if we're looking at diagnostic testing or pooled testing. We're trying to see which one's going to provide the best benefit and the one that we're going to be able to manage.
Right. Well, thank you for the synopsis there of what's going on. And I think that I'm inclined to say we should probably wait our questions till tomorrow, till our meeting tomorrow, so you have time to figure out the answers to them before we do that, if that's okay with everybody else. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
And once again, thank you, Katie, so much. Next, the goals and strategy progress.
Okay, so the hour is getting late, so I'll sort of hit the highlights. As you know, each year we go back to the action plans that have been developed for each priority under each of the 4 big bucket areas, the big objectives in the strategy. The progress notes have been incorporated into the action plan, progress notes to date. These documents are available to all of you in your meeting materials, and they've also been posted on the website with the school committee materials for this meeting. I'll quickly hit some highlights. There's a lot of work going on, and I just want to also remind you that my goals, I also indicated which big objective areas and priorities aligned back with the goals that I presented for this year. So essentially, right now, you're sort of, by giving you an update on the progress on the strategy, you're also getting a bit of an update on the goal work. Okay, so relative to the objective area, communication and operations, there's only one priority area, but the things that we've been working on, we have our IT consultant in lieu of an IT director on staff, and those consultants have been meeting with principals and directors to identify specific needs, tech needs that they would have. The consultants have also been working on mapping out a 10-year budgeting plan for replacement of devices and other equipment, technology equipment. Initially, at the beginning of the year, we talked about a move away from School Messenger as a communication tool to ClassTag. We have been working with them for the last 8 months, trying to be ready to roll this out. They seem to have oversold and underdelivered, and it's looking like we will not be moving forward with ClassTag, but there is an opportunity to add text messaging through School Messenger, which we are still using. So we're reassessing that plan. Additionally, we've introduced an HR module in PowerSchool, and we've been loading data into that module. We're anticipating that we'll be able to roll that out for staff to access at the start of next school year. This will track for teachers any of their credits for advancement, degree advancement, et cetera. Which takes some burden off of Liz Peterson at the central office, because teachers are frequently calling to see how many credits they have. So this will be a big help. We've also been working on creating many of the forms that we use transitioning them to a fillable electronic form. One of the things that we transitioned to was emergency forms for families to fill out. That has been a big help, not only to families, but to us on the other end, receiving all of the information. The district safety team, as you know, you heard from them tonight, the work that they've been doing. And you also approved so far this year the coaches handbook that has been completed. All righty, so transforming teaching and learning, 3 different priorities. Under this big objective area, we've started our after-school program. We had some challenges initially getting staff for the after-school program. So that continues to be a major theme, but we are underway at all grades throughout the district. We have also been working on tiered supports and making sure that we are articulating them clearly and demonstrating them and making sure that staff are aware of how the tiered supports work. We are piloting that Trails to Wellness curriculum. We are currently working on data cycles, and right now our data cycles are driven by the time that we give the benchmark assessments, iReady assessments, so fall, winter, and spring. We also are using DRA data in addition to iReady data. We have been participating in different academies with the Department of Ed, the Literacy Academy being one, and the selection of high quality math materials being another. Our K-8 coordinators have been providing content consultation and intervention support and guidance for teachers. Those intervention staff and reading teachers in the district are in push-in models. They are able to demonstrate some modeling of best practice for teachers in the classroom. Our Title I coordinator co-plans with every grade level, K through 5, once a week. We are conducting those instructional rounds, which our nickname for that is sweeps. And right now, 2 sweeps have been conducted at the Turkey Hill and 1 at the primary school. And we have an entire year mapped out for when those sweeps are conducted. Our behavioral health coordinator and director of teaching and learning have been making visits and observations in all the classrooms using the pilot curriculum, the SEL curriculum, Trails to Wellness. They're also having conversations with the teachers who are implementing that to get some feedback. We will be back with a recommendation as to adoption of this curriculum a little bit later this year. The Title I coordinator is also conducting literacy walks with principals and assistant principals and looking to see the results of common planning and execution of a shared lesson plan to be executed across all classrooms of a grade level to see the execution. And we continue to build out our curriculum page on our district website. We are also involved in DESE's Teacher Diversification PLC. So that's a lot of us at the district level. So Mr. Cassidy, myself, and Mrs. Hanscom, as well as our mentor coordinator in the district, Mr. Shays Green, and our union president, Mrs. LeBlanc. So we've been participating. We've attended 2 sessions at this point, and sessions are planned and mapped out for the remainder of the year. We are talking about a change to our mentor program structure. Right now, we have 1 mentor in each building, and that mentor supports teachers in year 1, 2, and 3. That's up to 9 teachers, because we sort of take a look at those numbers. So we're talking about moving to a model where there would be a more content or grade specific mentor assigned to a first-year teacher, and potentially moving our program for second and third-year teachers to a PLC model where they can do consultancy protocols, share best practice, problem solve, etc. Nothing's definitive yet, but conversation is ongoing as to that shift. Our assistant principals, our new assistant principals, are participating in a DESE mentoring program for administrators, as well as our director of teaching and learning is also participating in a mentor program for curriculum directors through MASS. And that, let's see, that pretty much covers teaching and learning. We're also doing a lot of climate culture work. We have settled on a valid climate survey. We will be using the survey developed by the National School Climate Center. We look to implement the survey to families, to students, and to staff. Sometime, hopefully, we originally had planned out with the company to do this late January. It may end up being bumped into February, but a measuring tool has been selected and we're starting to plan for implementation. We are also conducting SWOT analysis in each of our schools. Principals are getting that feedback from their staff through this SWOT protocol, and that is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So threats are kind of like those challenges or barriers that might be difficult to overcome in order to take advantage of or move in the direction of opportunities or addressing weaknesses. So each of the principals is doing this protocol with their staff, and we will also have that data to analyze in addition to the results from the survey. And we're also looking to do some relationship mapping, and the social workers in each of the buildings will be working with principals to determine how best to accomplish that. We want to know that students in our schools have that trusted adult, that connection back to at least one adult in the building. But we're going to conduct this with the teachers to see what their perspective is as to the connections they feel that they have with their students. Relative to equity, access, achievement, and opportunity, again, we created the Bridge program at the high school, and that supports students who need that additional support for graduation. Rather than the Achieve or TLC, particularly the Achieve, which previously had been a non-diploma sort of track. This Bridge program now allows or affords students to be on that track to a diploma. We're planning an SEL presentation February 16th. That presentation will include data and summary of all the things that we've put in place to support mental health, behavioral health needs in our schools. And again, the SEL Academy that we are in with DESE, there'll be an update on that as well. We are looking at and analyzing benchmark assessment data with teachers. It's actually the teachers who realize that they need some additional data points. And we're working to identify some common assessments that can be done to get them some additional data between benchmarks. We are still running our TST program, our referral process. That's the academic referrals before we refer to special ed for an evaluation. We put some accommodations in place and monitor for a 6 to 8 week period, come back together and see if progress is being made. We have that same model with our behavioral health support team. That's the referral for kiddos that may be impacted by mental or behavioral health issues in the classroom, presenting a challenge for their access to the curriculum. We are, in terms of the equity, diversity, inclusion work that we're doing in the district, we have partnered with Visions, a consulting group in this DEI work. We have had 2 training sessions with this group for the district leadership team. We have another planned, and we also have trainings planned for our curriculum cabinet. And you might remember that the curriculum cabinet is the department heads from the high school and our K-8 coordinators and our principals. So we will be bringing those leaders in the district into this training before the year is out. And those dates for workshops have already been scheduled. We've also we also have secured Bay State interpreters as a resource for our regular education needs. Oftentimes, you know, students need translation for other types of meetings, not IEP meetings, or they need documents translated, or we need to have somebody who can translate on the phone for phone calls between the teacher and a parent, or the office and a parent. And this was an area that we were lacking. So we have secured the services of this interpreter service. And we are using Mass Commission for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing for interpreters for those that are hearing impaired. And in terms of cultivating climate and culture, I think that we're seeing some success with the model that we've put in place, having additional teacher leaders in the K-8 curriculum models. Our safety team is working to ensure that we have a safe building environment. Our COVID safety protocol team, as you heard from Mrs. McGuire earlier, also meeting to make sure that we can maintain a safe learning environment. And again, we will be bringing back that SEL curriculum for a possible recommendation for adoption, or a recommendation as to what our next steps are if we're not moving to adopt that curriculum. And you saw the first iteration of an FY23 budget this evening. So there's a lot of work going on in the district. My goal over the next 2.5 months worth of meetings is to have different groups in front of you presenting on the work that's included in these updates. So next meeting, you'll hear all things academics. The following meeting, all things social, emotional, behavioral health. We will have the instructional leadership team before you. We will have members of the Equity Advisory Council before you. So we've mapped out several different groups that we would like to get on an agenda over the next 5 meetings to demonstrate for you and for you to have an opportunity to ask them questions about the work that is being done, so that you're not just hearing my quick summary of the things that are happening. You'll be able to hear directly from the people who are doing the work, and you'll be able to ask more detailed questions of them over the next 2.5 months worth of school committee meetings. Questions?
That's a lot of information.
It's a lot. There's a lot of work going on.
Lot of
There
work.
really is a lot of work going on.
For sure. Do we have anyone with a question for Dr. Burnham? I think you touched on everything.
And you'll get to see firsthand all of that over the next several meetings.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for summarizing that. Now we move on to the capital plan.
So at our last meeting, Mr. Leighton gave a report from the capital plan committee and mentioned how our capital plan projects were rated. And I'm wondering if, a couple things. If he could share some insight as to how that process works with that rubric and the scoring, as well as, Mr. Murphy is here this evening. We could discuss the possibility of further advocating for some of our projects, or potentially looking at the feasibility of having an air conditioned project down at the primary school be a phased project over a couple of years. But I thought it was worth an opportunity to have some conversation, because in recent years with the rubric and the points assigned, many of our projects have fallen low on the list of capital projects. So I thought it would be worthwhile having the discussion. I'll turn it back to you, Mrs. Ashambo.
That's fine. Brian, do you want to talk a little bit about how the rubric works and that kind of thing?
Yeah, sure. I can talk about the process too. I think this is my first year on capital planning too. And I think we've seen it throughout the last couple of years too, with different members on the committee, that the air conditioning didn't rate well. That was one of the things I think that was the biggest concern, the air conditioning for the primary. So there's a couple of rankings. There's one ranking that the town does. I forget the initials, but there's a ranking system that they have a bunch of categories for, and that tallies up. But it doesn't always work out ideally. Some things like engineering for a culvert didn't rank high because it's actually not getting the job done, but it is preparation for the work that needs to get done, and then you have to get that funding for the actual project. So things like that, there's I guess, I don't know, it's a human error, or just doesn't come out in the priority rankings. So how the capital planning works is the committee, it's a group of us, 5 people, that we go through the process and we're decide how we're going to rank them. And then what we did this year was we individually ranked them, all the 30 plus items that went towards the capital planning committee. And then we would go through and prioritize them ourselves, have a discussion even before that too. At the beginning, it was kind of like, this is a high priority, medium priority, low priority. And then later on, we took those for homework and went to the next meeting with our rankings. And then we found an average, and then we went through with that average and ranked them. Then the following meeting, we went through that list again and reorganized anything that we felt like was a little off, or that we wanted to discuss more and had concerns about. And I think what we saw this year and last year too, especially with the primary air conditioning, I know that was definitely a focus or concern of ours, but the AC aspect of it threw people off, even though the explanation was there by the superintendent, by John Londa, by John Murphy, that it is needed, that the temperatures are getting high, that there's students with concerns over and over, but it didn't become a major priority because it was, whether there was still airflow, there was temporary air conditioning. It just didn't come out as a high priority of the other committee members. And listening to Lisa LeBlanc this meeting, I was like, wow, that would be great to have that kind of public comment at our meetings. And we didn't have that, besides the superintendent and myself speaking towards the air conditioning. And I don't know if it's a combination too of just trying to, again, just reiterate that information to the public so that they know, and also the capital planning members. I know just the process in general, I felt like a lot of the members too, not regards to AC, but just in general, during the process was trying to divide up the project. So it wasn't just about the buildings. Like you can't just take care of the buildings. You have to make sure we're getting the trucks to plow the roads and upgrading different aspects. But it wasn't just about the buildings. And I think that was, some people just wanted to focus on the buildings and take care of like hazmat materials and stuff like that. So I think it was just trying to diversify the funding.
Okay, thanks. I don't know. I know that the mower fell in the before the cutoff, as did the plow. So those projects then it looks like will probably be funded. Is that correct, Brian? And
yeah, that's what I had seen from last night's the select board meeting.
Right. So really it's the air conditioning to try and figure out what to do about that. I was wondering, it's at this point, it's in my opinion, or my thought, it's too late to do anything about this year's go round. I would believe, but we need to get somehow a way to get our point across that the air conditioning is vital.
Yeah, I agree. Just to add, I think maybe we make one more year go around and make a concerted effort to get the public the information, get the public to go to these capital planning committees and put a little pressure on the capital planning members. And if not, then I think if we have time that we can wait another year, then we try to phase it in and phase it in if we have to. We can't get it in the capital plan.
Do you want Mr. Murphy to talk about the possibility of a phased project?
Sure, we can do that. I do see your hand, Mr. Beardmore. I want to hear from Mr. Murphy first. If Mr. Murphy can add some information on that. It's Mr. Murphy.
Perhaps he has stepped away from his computer.
Oh, yeah, he's here, but he's not here. Okay, then we don't usually take questions back and forth, but I will take this one from Mr. Beardmore because I do know that he is an advocate of this particular, or I think he is, of this particular project. Mr. Beardmore?
Thank you for recognizing me. I'm well aware that it's out of cycle. This is not a new issue, and I joined your meeting late. I understand that perhaps there was some other comment about this earlier. I didn't get to hear it, so forgive me if I'm being repetitive. Those of us who have been around for a while know that air conditioning was part of the original design of that school, and it wasn't included as a cost containment measure as other issues were escalating, and we needed to keep it within the number. And the problem has just not gone away. It's been a continual problem, and it's not something that's going to go away. And to my knowledge, we are going to continue to maintain and teach students in that building for probably at least another 30 years. So sooner or later, we're going to have to deal with this problem. Last year, we put more money from local funds and capital and free cash, available funds effectively, into the capital plan than we ever have in the history of Lunenburg. That's excluding, of course, debt exclusions, right? This year, we will rival that number. And that's largely an effect of a lot of leftover money in free cash as a result of COVID-related issues. We're not going to have $1 million of free cash next year, most likely. And so, but capital needs don't go away. We're gonna buy 2 new police cars next year. We're going to buy another dump truck. We're going to buy an ambulance in a couple of years. I mean, all these things are coming around. And I don't see any way that this project gets addressed with the current regime or thinking that's in place. As soon as the highway department puts in a radio system, which, by the way, we've never had radios in our trucks the last 10 years, I believe. Call it a safety problem, it automatically goes up the list because it's considered a safety issue. And we're not addressing this issue because we needed to cut costs 20 years ago when we built the building. I find this to be extremely problematic. And I know that this committee follows a pretty strict approach to its role with respect to how the state defines the role of a school committee by the Education Reform Act back in the 90s. If you're not advocating for your buildings, nobody else is gonna. This is on you. This is on the 5 members of this committee. If you're not raising hell about this, nobody else is going to. And you know, you can kick the can for another year. That's fine. I sit on another committee. I'm happy to advocate for you. I'm happy to demand answers. But if you're not taking the lead, nobody else is going to. And that's that. Thank you.
Peter, do you feel it's too late for this year?
No, I don't. I think that there are issues on the capital plan right now that are worthy of conversation and strict scrutiny. And those conversations will happen at the Finance Committee. I can tell you that on behalf of myself and on behalf of the committee. And this capital plan is, in my opinion, not a done deal. Now, you know, the town manager has the purview to bring whatever she wants really to town meeting with respect to the capital plan. She has reorganized some of the priorities that the capital planning committee brought forth, but the ultimate line never really changed. It's the same projects that fall under that $1.7-ish million number. But you know, I don't think that that it's gotten the scrutiny yet. Certainly by the public. It's just been seen publicly for the first time 24 hours ago.
Right.
And the select board had some questions. By the way, Mr. Jeffries asked very valid questions about the ratio of facilities spending versus vehicles and other maintenance equipment. So I think that there's ample discussion to be had here. And even if it isn't resolved in the favor of funding this thing this year, there's a benefit of not sweeping it under the rug and making people aware that you have tenured staff and 5 and 6 and 7-year-old children in 90-degree heat 2 months out of the year, plus the humidity, plus whatever. And the town manager works in air conditioning, the police department work in air conditioning, the highway department work in and out of air. I mean, everybody in town works in air conditioning, but somehow because this is considered air conditioning in a school and everybody went to school in 4 feet of snow uphill both ways their entire childhood, we shouldn't air condition the second floor of a building that was designed to have air conditioning in it. That makes no sense to me. And I think that it's ridiculous that we have not addressed this issue.
Thank you.
Can I just step in? Mr. Beardmore and even Brian, if you want to answer this, where can we direct parents who are not aware that they could raise, you know, a little bit more of an issue to capital planning? Where can they go? Should they attend a capital planning meeting? Should they go to the finance committee? Should they go to the town manager? Where, because I know there's students in our district who physically need cooler rooms because of whatever medical issues that they're having. Where can these parents go to address these concerns and try and get some more attention that this is needed?
So I can't speak for the capital planning committee. I believe their work is effectively done through this phase.
Okay.
It'll probably come back to them as we get a little bit closer into the number, because like the numbers you saw tonight, even the capital plan number is a little squishy and will be for the next couple of months. But it is effectively in the ballpark, or it's in the hands of the town manager right now, effectively,
Okay.
Both the finance committee and the select board will make recommendations, which will be printed in the warrant about the capital plan as well as the budget as a whole. The superintendent mentioned that our hearing of our hearing of your budget, which, by the way, we will ask capital planning related questions at every department budget discussion. That'll be on the 17th of March. We will hold a public hearing, I believe, the week following that. I think, I'm not looking at the calendar, where the public is welcome to ask questions of any department head or the town manager in public. But in the meantime, you can pick up the phone and call the town manager and certainly come to meetings and comment. I think that at this point is exactly what's needed, in fact.
Thank you.
Mrs. Schoenbrini.
Thanks, Carol. This is a question for either the superintendent or Mr. Beardmore. Has there ever been an issue where the lack of air conditioning has impacted a student's disability so that it denied them a free, appropriate public education? Or if it didn't rise to that level, has it ever given rise to a condition that would result in potential liability for the municipality?
Yep, so I would like to see if Mrs. Hanscom could comment.
So it hasn't risen to that level yet. But I can say that we're probably on the cusp of something happening, because what we've done up to this point is we've put a Band-Aid on all of the, whenever we've had a student come in where we've needed to have temperature regulation, we've looked at what can we do to put an AC in the classroom, the portable AC in the classroom, or can we move the class into a different class that has a better temperature regulation? So we've tried to deal with it that way, and parents have been very good about working with us on making these kind of accommodations. But I can say at some point, it's not going to be good enough anymore. When you're looking at relocating a whole class because of a temperature issue, I believe, for example, this year we had to change a whole classroom for a special subject area when it got warmer. And you know, it's just not okay. It's not equal for all students. And like I said, we've done the best that we can. For example, we now have our ESY program is entirely at the middle high school. And that's mostly because of the temperature regulation, and because we could regulate and have the temperature regulated at the high school and middle school for those summer months. So we've done our very best up to this point to put a Band-Aid on a problem when it's come up. But I can say we're getting more and more students come in, and you know what? They're not always on my radar for special ed students. Some of these students are on 504 plans, or they're completely regular ed, and then we don't hear about it until right when the weather starts creeping up, and then parents call and they have to talk to the nurse about needing temperature regulation for a medical need. And I can tell you from my experience, these type of cases wouldn't necessarily go to the special ed BSEA. They would go to OCR, the Office of Civil Rights, if parents wanted to make an issue of it. And I can tell you right now that dealing with OCR is a nightmare.
Oh yeah, no, I dealt with them.
An absolute nightmare. So, you know, I had talked to Kate briefly about this a couple of days ago, and you know, even the cost for, say, if we had a student come in and we couldn't regulate at the primary school or one of the other schools for whatever reason, and I had to say, okay, well, we need to place a student out of district then, because there's no way we can medically keep the student here. One, is there going to be a place that could take this student just for the basis of, do you have AC in your program or not? And is that an appropriate fit for a student based on that? But that one out of district cost could be upwards of over $100,000 a year. And like I said, that's not even to say if parents really wanted to push the issue and brought it forward to OCR, that would be a whole nother problem for the district with them coming out and investigating this. So, I mean, I can say that we really have done our best to put fixes in place as of right now, but it's getting harder and harder. to do that. It really is getting more difficult.
So would you say it's reasonably foreseeable that a problem could arise in the future you couldn't deal with?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
But the mitigations, in my opinion, if you're having to reprogram the primary school and reschedule classes and move classes because of the needs of a particular student, that's not acceptable. You know, I mean, the school needs to be used for its intended purpose. We have space issues as it is, and we need to be able to use that space for its intended purpose. And right now it's limited because we have not made this investment. And I would add, I should have added earlier, currently above the line on the capital plan are new condensers for the Eagle House, replacement condensers for the Eagle House that are at the end of their life cycle, and an HVAC system that includes air conditioning for the town hall. So, you know, we're air conditioning other places, just apparently our school department does not rate for whatever reason. And again, I will seek answers this year, but you know, the level that we press on this, the level that I'm willing to press on it, is a derivative of what this committee is willing to do.
Okay, Mr. Leighton?
Thank you. I appreciate the comments about reaching out to the town manager. I would also just mention too that the capital planning is a 5-member committee, consists of a school committee representative, also a finance committee representative, planning board representative, select board representative, and then 1 member that's appointed by the town moderator. So I think, again, if we encourage people to be more active in their community and also people who are going to support schools, I think that is also something we can do to try to get this issue resolved as well.
I would offer that there is a general ed impact as well. We had to move our summer program, not our special education extended school year summer program, but our academic intervention school year program for K through 12 to the middle high school this summer, again, because it is the only building that is climate controlled. But the furniture that is appropriate for bodies of students at the middle high school is not appropriate furniture for a first grader. So we did have to move some furniture. You know, we, even at the middle high school in the summertime, we're not air conditioning the building. You don't walk in and feel like, ooh, I need my sweater in here. It's climate controlled. It's climate controlled all year long. So we're not, you know, cranking the AC in the building all summer long. It's just a misconception, I think, that some people have. But we do have medical need. It is a quality of environment that when we have temperatures in classrooms in excess of 90 degrees, coupled with humidity, and once the humidity gets into the building, it is very difficult to get it out of the building. That takes its toll physically, especially when you're under those conditions for multiple days. We have had, not in large number, but we have had staff have to go home because of the physical impact of being in that environment. You know, symptoms of heat stroke, same thing for children. Sick to their stomach because of the environment that they're in. You know, the kids are a little bit more lethargic under those conditions, especially multiple days in a row. And we don't have shade structures sufficient enough to have the kiddos go outside. Not that necessarily the outside is going to be a better place for them to be if it's 90+ degrees and humid. It's not a great work environment for our employees. And I think the point was raised. Other departments, other employees in other departments in town have an air-conditioned environment to work from during hot days and months.
I'm thinking that this is obviously a very time-sensitive issue. I'm wondering if a letter could be drafted to bring to the town manager and to be read at the finance committee and at the select board about these issues. And I'm more than happy to take a stab, but I'm thinking, Mr. Schoenbrini, it might be you that would have the best influence on this with your background, because you know the correct questions to ask. So I'm wondering if you and I might make a small subcommittee and see if we can put something together. Any
I'm happy
thoughts
to help.
that we could give that a try? Is that agreeable to the other people in the committee? Yeah, oh, well, why don't we do that and see what we can do in the next week, let's say, and see if we can get something put together. Because it's not going to go away. And if it's not too late to give a stab for this year, then I think we should give it a try. And if nothing else, it will cement the idea that it's more than the kids are getting a little hot. There's more to this story than that. So thank you. We can move forward in that direction. And thank you for your comments, Mr. Beardmore. And now we're on public comment. Imagine that. Anybody with a public comment? Seeing no hands.
Carol, can I just?
Oh,
this is
sorry.
just-
Didn't see you.
It's more for the public for information. I had some inquiries from parents asking when kindergarten registration is going to be this year. Do you have a date, Dr. Burnham?
Yeah, we usually open it in February, so there'll be some information coming shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So now it's time for reports. The Athletic Advisory Committee.
We have not met.
Okay. Then the Finance Committee. Well, the Finance Committee met on January 13th and had a discussion with Senator Cronin and Representatives Kushmarek and Sena regarding state funding. In response, I'm just going to talk about Chapter 70 funding because otherwise we will be here all night. In response to the comments about Chapter 70 funding, Senator Cronin suggested that the town needs to grow their tax base, that would help with the funding. He also commented that although the Student Opportunity Act is creating our Chapter 70 funding to remain static, the Student Opportunity Act is still being implemented. It's a 5-year implementation. After that implementation, then they will take time to see if the intended results and what are the unintended results. So the feeling that I got from Senator Cronin was it's going to take a long time before we can do anything about this. That was his comment on it. Representative Kushmarek said that the Rural Caucus is studying the effect of the Student Opportunity Act. Basically, it's a group of legislators from the western part of the state because they obviously have the same problem. He basically said that it was our declining enrollment that was a major problem. I did the math. I came out with $1,300 difference because of declining enrollment in the last 2 years. I don't think that's the major problem. And Representative Sena does sit on the Education Committee. He said the formula should be looked at and maybe something could be done to help with the schools regarding healthcare. That maybe there's a way of, through the legislator, getting some help with the healthcare issue, and maybe that could help with the budget. Overall, I was not encouraged with that conversation. I do believe that if we had a specific something that we needed to talk to them with, they would come through as best they could. I don't doubt their sincerity or the hours that they work. But I did feel that we weren't getting anywhere fast. And the Finance Committee meets next on the 27th of January for the 5-year forecast. Next is the PTO. And after all that PTO discussion, Brian told me when it was, and I was able to jump on. So Brian, if you want to add in, you're welcome to. The discussion was basically about fundraising. The Little Caesar fundraiser is going on now. You can order pizza making kits until February 9th, and the information has all gone home to families. They are finalizing a fundraiser with the Worcester Railers. Tickets for the March 5th game. Information will be sent home to buy tickets. They're $15, and $3 from every ticket goes back to the PTO. There was some discussion about a possible restaurant night with this percentage of sales coming to the PTO, but nothing formal on that. There was a lot of conversation about perhaps changing Parents' Night Out to be a family activity to be held outdoors in the spring. A committee has been formed to look into this. And then next month, Dr. Burnham will attend with a budget discussion. Did I miss anything, Mr. Leighton?
The only thing I caught there was $1,800 was raised for the primary Scholastic Book Fair.
Oh, thank you very much. There you go. So next is school councils. So the primary school,
We're meeting on February 14th.
the middle school, the elementary school.
We're meeting tomorrow.
There you go. The middle school. Mr. School and Green.
We had a meeting just prior to the last school board meeting. So I don't know if we have a new date yet, but that was the one where I believe Ms. Fletcher brought up the issue regarding the dramatic increase for mental health services.
All righty, thank you. And the high school.
The high school met on Thursday, January 6th. Pretty short meeting with the increase of students and teachers alike testing positive. Mr. Santry just wanted to say that the paraprofessionals have been doing a great job stepping in and really helping out. We discussed 2022 to 2023 school year PD days. Those will come for the school committee's approval in the next few months. Mr. Santry said, there was a high school mental health update from Jamie, but she'll be giving us a very similar presentation very soon, so I don't want to steal her thunder. There will be a building budget request increase as a result of needed textbook costs, just some replacements. The high school will be putting in for a few new positions, including a tech position and an interventionist. There is continued difficulty passing Algebra 2 graduation, passing the Algebra 2 graduation requirement. So the high school is considering an Algebra 2 basics curriculum to kind of just touch on the necessities of the curriculum. And we will be meeting next on February 17th.
Okay, thank you. The Wellness Advisory Committee.
That's also me. We met on December 7th, but I haven't been here to report since. So there are student reps on the committee this year, which is super exciting. We're really happy to have them. We had a COVID update, which was basically everything Katie just told us earlier. Vision tests are being put on hold for contact tracing and the like. We had a behavioral health update, which Jamie will also be giving us very soon. So again, I'm not going to steal her thunder quite yet. We had a nutrition update. They are working on Harvest of the Month program with a garden at school and recipes for families. The lunch menu is largely back to normal, but we're still struggling with some supply chain issues. There was a great Serve Safe class in November. They got 2 staff members certified in food handling, which will help mitigate some of the classroom food and cooking concerns so that we can ensure that food is being cooked and served safely. They sent out a letter to staff about policies regarding eating and cooking in the classroom and wellness policy. Just a little reminder that there is still no food allowed in the classroom because of COVID precautions. We had a great conversation about bringing homemade food into the classroom and possibly switching the district policy to only permit prepackaged food with labels and no common allergens to accommodate students with allergies or restrictions for health, safety, and equity reasons. And we will be meeting again on February 8th.
Okay, thank you. Paxel.
Our meeting last week from the 13th was actually canceled, so we're going to be meeting on March 10th.
All right, thank you. And the Lunenburg Municipal Building Design Committee.
We have not met yet.
All right, thank you. Lifelong Learning.
No meeting scheduled yet.
Okay,
But I will give the committee an update that we are scheduled a meeting between our Director of Community School Programs and our DPW Director and the new Rec Department Director to have that conversation about adult programming between rec programs and our adult learning. So after that meeting, we will probably have a lifelong learning meeting.
all right. Policy Subcommittee.
We met on Friday, the 14th, and we had some discussion regarding the policy 3601 transportation. And I think that's going to be a topic for an upcoming meeting to discuss among the committee members on some suggestions on what we can do to make transportation a little bit easier on our administrators and also just more productive throughout the town.
Okay. MASC Workshop Report. I did listen in on a learning, recovery, planning, and implementation meeting. However, I didn't listen in for the whole thing because it was all about urban districts and all about which computer program we can put them on. So I didn't find that particularly helpful. So that was the end of that one. Are there topics for future discussion?
So Carol, just to go back, I just wanted to add some. So the MASC did post recently some new additional opportunities. So this one's a little interesting. So this one's a school committee student representative orientation. So I thought that would be really neat. So the MASC is holding a student school committee representative orientation on Sunday, January 30th at the Marriott in Marlborough from 9 a.m. to 12:30. So if a
We did
student wants
share
to
that with our
get into
student rep.
school,
Oh,
awesome.
okay, great, great.
Yeah, so I thought that would be great, even if our student rep wants to attend and we can hear some feedback, I think that'll be great. Then the second one was a learning lunch series. It's an MIAA overview, the Massachusetts Interscholastic Athletic Association overview. So I thought that would be pretty good too. So it's Dr. Robert Baldwin, the Executive Director of the Massachusetts Interscholastic Association, will provide an overview of the MIAA, who they are, what their responsibilities are, and what their role is. So that one's on February 4th at 12.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so topics for our next meeting.
I don't know if this needs to be our next meeting, but just coming off of what we all just discussed today, it might be more helpful to get, I don't know, a strategy together to encourage parents on how they can contribute to decisions that are being made with capital planning and with this air conditioning issue. I feel as though there was a lot of people in the community that if they were aware that they could make an impact, they probably would have gotten involved. So I don't know if there's something that we can do or we can encourage, whether it be on our Facebook page or what is the most appropriate avenue to get parents to be able to voice what they think is important also.
Okay. I would think we could put that on there.
And I think the transportation is going to come up too, the policy that we have to discuss.
Sure. Okay, if there isn't anything else, I'm seeing a telephone, and I know that when I went to public comment, I don't know that it was there, but it might have been. And because you can't raise your hand on the telephone, we might have skipped over it. So if the person who's on the telephone wants to make a public comment, speak now. Okay, I guess not then, but thank you for joining us just the same. And then can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Ms. Shapiro?
This is Sophie Shapiro, and I'll make a motion to adjourn at 10 p.m.
And the second? Mr. Leighton?
This is Brian Leighton, and I'll second that motion.
And a roll call vote?
Mr. Schoenbrini,
Aye.
Ms. Shapiro,
Yes.
Mrs. Kelly,
Yes.
Mr. Leighton,
Yes.
Mrs. Archambault.
Yes.
Thank you all.
Okay,
Good
have a good
night.
evening. We'll
Thanks,
see you
everyone.
tomorrow.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
Carol.
Oh, yes.
Bye, everybody.
You
Good
tomorrow.
night now.